So, who's Brad? That's a good question. I, I always find that hard to answer because there's a lot of stuff that comes into mind when someone asks you that question. But to answer that question, who's Brad, it would be amiss for me to skip that who I am is pretty much a disciple of Jesus. That's where everything starts from. That's where I take everything out from. It's not just being a Christian, but it's someone following Jesus daily and do the best that you can to be close to your master. So in all of that, I guess my journey, you could say I started out on 9 April 2006. I even say that in one of my pieces. That's where it all started from. And then that walk of getting to know who Jesus is, getting your roots down, your foundations, and building it up as a relationship. So Bradley then would be a disciple of Jesus, and then in that pursuit ever since, stuff gets clearer. You know, when you're on a path, you're pursuing something, and in this case, not just anything. It's the real deal. We're talking about pursuing Jesus, the Master, and in all of that, He makes everything clearer for you, who you are. That's when He gives you a purpose, your calling, and everything becomes clear into that context. So to define who I am would be purely as a result of pursuit. I believe myself to be, first of all, from confirmation from Him, to be someone who's been called to let people know how to relate to their destiny. That being very defined on me. It's not just something I came up with or something that I would like to be, but it actually came to a point where I actually had to ask God to help me define myself. Because when you don't know who you are, you can do everything. And when there's no definition in life, you can easily do anything. But it's a grace for you to be able to understand who you are. So Bradley is a student of life. And because you're a student, then you get to be a teacher. And when you're a teacher, then you got to have a way to be able to articulate or even pass on what you're learning. And so I'm a student, I'm a teacher, I'm a writer, I'm a speaker, and all of that. But like I'm saying, the main thing that I am is simply a disciple of Jesus, someone rooted and doing his best to get closer to the Master. So I'm not just so people are like, you're a spoken word artist. I'm like, I cringe at times when people say that because, yes, I do spoken word, but that's not who I am. So, you're a poet. I'm like, yeah, I do poetry, but that's not who I am. So you're a performer. I'm like, no, I'm not a performer. I do stand on stages though, and articulate the things that I'm learning and the things that are real. So I just don't get on stages and start creating pieces for nothing. No, everything that I write is actually real life. Some of the stuff that I'm actually dealing with myself. That doesn't mean I have the answers. I'm not even the perfect person, but I know the perfect one. So in all of that, I'm just a disciple of Jesus in pursuit of Jesus. And out of that, my calling has been made clear. Someone called to let people know how to relate to their destiny and what that entails. And in every aspect of my life, whether I'm on stage, whether I'm just me, whether I'm just doing me, I always try to lay that out because it comes out naturally for me. And one of the ways I could find that easily was just mainly because I've heard people say the greatest way to know who you are is just to check out what frustrates you. And if you're able to identify that, then it's easy for you to see, now this could be what I'm made for. So that came out after a lot of consideration. So in a nutshell, Bradley is just someone who's passionate about Jesus. In all that aspects I could talk about, I like people, I love people, I love to talk, I love to write. I actually think I'm more of a writer than I am of a speaker, because when I get into my zone, I like to bring all the thoughts that I'm learning, the stuff that I'm seeing, and just be able to get to a place where I'm actually able to impart something that's of value to people. So that's essentially who I am. So don't call me a spoken word artist. Yes, though I do spoken word, and I use that avenue, and I even try to master it in the best way I can, because ultimately it's living out a calling and doing it intentionally and using everything that you know you're about and using every other avenue, writing avenue, speaking avenue, even just relationship avenue, teaching avenue, to be able to impart that which God has defined for you. So that's Bradley. Saltilites Incorporated. Um, it's an organization. Firstly, the journey is actually amazing because it started off on Facebook, just as a Facebook group. One other day, it was in 2012, where actually through a friend of mine, my best friend, Anis, like, I know you should actually come up with something that goes along those lines and just write it up. And then because being on Facebook and just writing stuff that comes out of me, like I said, who I am, not like to please people, but just something that you're actually realizing. So then I just like, I know, let me start off something. Then I thought of the name. So I got to a point where it hit me that Matthew 5, verse 18, verse 16, you are the salt of the earth and you are the light of the world. So then I had to come up with the name, and it just came up, Saltilites. So salt and light, and then coming all together, Saltilites. So it started off as a Facebook group, and we just used to post scriptures and this just to edify each other, whatever you're thinking of, to help the next person. That's how it started off, and it went on for a full year. So then in 2000, a year later, that's when I believe actually God spoke to me, and then He clarified, no, just remove it from it just being a Facebook page or group, but actually make it as an organization. So that's when I actually had to consider that, and then went through the whole legal criteria and asked help from my brother, who was at that time doing a lot of things in terms of company registration and everything. So I sought his help, and then we managed to actually go through the process of registering it as an organization. So actually right now as we speak, it's actually a registered organization. And what it purely does, it's an organization that administers people to be the salt and light in their generation. And how we do that through creation of expressive platforms. So you find that, like right now, most times when you say Saltilites Incorporated, most people are just thinking poetry, of which it's way more than that. But it seems that it's only about poetry because that's how we started off. So there are a whole lot of dynamics to it. So we go about just creating platforms, events, any other way we can get people together. And when we do that, be able to use the resource of people so that they can get on the stage and be able to display who they are. Because we believe that when God said you are the salt on the earth, He was not only speaking to Christians. So Saltilites Incorporated then becomes not only an organization for Christians, it's actually an organization that's all-pervading, going out there. They're saying not everyone is actually created for a purpose, But because when God speaks, He actually sometimes speaks to barren situations. But because when He speaks it, then you become. He's the God who speaks things that be not as though they were. So when God says, you are fruitful, even though you might look around and you see, I'm actually barren. But then because God spoke it, you will be that. So that's the other aspect of Saltilites Incorporated, to actually go out there and say, you are the salt of the earth. Maybe by that time you're like, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't think so. But because God said in His word, there's a process for you to be able to get to that place. So Saltilites Incorporated is an administration organization purely. And then we try to gather around creative ways to build up platforms, partnerships, where we can actually get to a stage where we're actually impacting our generation. And so it has 4 bases initially. We're talking of, there are 4 bases. The first base, or you call them departments. The first department is Platter, which is purely an arts department, that's where the poetry side of things comes. We're talking of arts, we're talking of anything that's creative, that's artsy. That's a department that deals with it. Then we have a department called Daughters of Sarah, which is a department that deals mainly with ladies and how they should be at a stature where God made them to be. And then we have another base called B Foundation, which is purely a business department, where we try to gather ideas, business people, because at the end of the day, it's about being in a place where God is using you for an impact, even to enrich your own life and also enrich the people that are around you. And then we have the last base, which is base populate, which is a department that deals mainly with evangelizing. Because at the end of the day, it's about Jesus. There is no greater mandate than actually going out there and telling someone about Jesus. So that's what Saltilites is all about. So those 4 bases, Platter, Daughters of Sarah, B Foundation, and Base Populate, which is just an evangelistic tool to go out there and say, hey, you need Jesus. At the end of the day, we all going to die. Not in fear, but that's the sad truth, and that's the reality of it. And we try to get as much people to know about Jesus. So then, Sotelites Inc. is an organization that does that, and it's actually just 2 years old. So there's a whole lot of structures that are still needed to come into place. But we are of the mind that He waits for the wind to sow, we never sow. So we're not gonna wait for everything to be perfect, but we're gonna trust God to launch out in the deep, and then He will structure everything in process, because we're living in the last days, and there's always a time limit to everything, and want to get to a place where at the end of it all we've done everything for the glory of God. So Sotelites Inc. Is still a growing organization, full-fledged, and doing the best that it can. So that's an organization that I represent. So probably you hear Bradley and Sotelites Incorporated, but there are different aspects to it, and with the incorporated part, because we have a different number of people inside there. It's just not me alone, although I happen to lead it also. But then I can only do that with actually the good team. So God is putting everything in place. So that's all I can say for Sotelites Incorporated, but it's still growing, and God is leading the pace. Yeah. So yeah, so now you know who's Brad and what is Sotelites Incorporated. Then I guess the next sober question would be, so what? Um, I guess we're just basically saying, because Sotelites is still growing up, and with a lot of things that are still wanting to be in place, and we have a heart for the things that we're doing, and we believe it's actually a mandate. So if you want to partner with us, we're available. If you want, if you're organizing something that you actually want us to be part of, because like I said, it's just not me. I also got a team out there. But if you want me specifically, then I can always come. If it's poetry, if it's anything to do with writing, if it's corporate speaking, if it's any events that you're wanting to add substance to that nature, you can always get in touch with us. And because I believe no man is an island, and we can always do things collectively. I like the statement that says every book is written in, the best books are actually written in communities. And I believe every person has got a story to tell, especially if God is on your, is direct you somewhere. So yeah, we're just inviting, that's like an invite to out there for partnership, for working together, and any means that we can come together and be able to bring fruit of that nature. So yeah, get in touch with us, and do it hard for God. Yeah.
Cool.